Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives right after big important news. With us today, I'm happy to have him back again, Bernard Tourillon. He's chairman and CEO of HPQ Silicon Resources. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol HPQ. For those of you who are new to the story, HPQ is planning on becoming a vertically integrated producer of solar-grade silicon metal. And that's with the goal of manufacturing solar cells eventually. Now, sounds like a big game, but more than just lip service. The company just secured $5.2 million financing, which included the Quebec government and one of their strategic partners. On that note, PyroGenesis is one of the two strategic partners. They're a global leader in plasma torque technology. And Apollon Solar, the other partner, is one of the world leaders in renewable energy. If their process that is about to go to commercial scale testing in the summer works out as planned and as it's gone to this date, they're absolutely going to crush capital and operating costs that have been traditionally seen in the industry and give them an incredible cost advantage, as well as crush the amount of CO2 carbon emissions that are coming out of the production of solar-grade silicon metal to give them a huge green advantage. The press release we're here to talk about today, here's the headline. HPQ's latest Gen 2 progress report confirms the process's ability to convert low purity quartz into 4N silicon metal in one step at commercial scale. Bernard, welcome to the show.
Hi, George.
Hi.
I'm really happy to be here because, the project is advancing very, very well. And I'm happy we're going to have an opportunity to give more insight into what's behind that press release.
All right, that's what we're here for. Let's get straight to it. First of all, the headline. Very exciting, but at the same time, very technical. So before we get into, some of the technical aspects about this, on a layman's term, what does it mean to the layman investor, and what does it mean to the solar industry, this headline?
Well, to everybody is what you have to understand is to make the key ingredient in solar energy is silicon metal, right? It's high purity silicon metal. You need about 3.6 grams of it to generate 1 watt. That's the concept of it. So that's the key ingredient. The problem is taking it from quartz, which is its raw form, and bringing it to the purity requires to make solar cell, which is around 5N for a metallurgic process, and 6N, 7N, and higher if they're using a chemical process, is an expensive, complicated process. But the feedstock for everybody in the solar industry is the first transformation, okay, the metallurgic transformation. And the industry requires many, many hoops and bounds just to barely make 99% in the metallurgic. 99, barely 99. What comes out of the reactor is not even 99. It needs to be processed just to make it 98.5, 99%. And it requires extremely high purity raw ingredient. Okay. Now, it's common sense and logic that if you for the same cost, okay, can produce a material that is much higher purity. And people have to remember that every half N of purity removal is supposedly very expensive and everything else. Okay. So if you can do for the same cost, the same energy, okay, a material that's a raw material for the feedstock of everybody else in the solar that's going to be at least 4N going higher, okay, you already have a tactical advantage over everybody else because there are markets for those products and it's going to require less energy, less cost to purify at the other step. Okay. The PureVap was designed with two goals in mind. One of them, have a flexibility in regard to raw ingredient feedstock, and be able to deliver very, very pure material. Now, what has become clear for us over time is that if we can do at a commercial scale of 4N and higher in one step, okay, then all the work that's been done over the years to develop a metallurgic route to make solar grade silicon metal becomes very efficient, very competitive. And that's
okay. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about incremental gains to the solar industry, or are you talking about revolutionary gains?
In our case, it is going to be paradigm shift type of gain, but it still requires a little bit of work. But it's going to be in the silicon metal industries. It's going to be paradigm shift. Okay, we haven't
massive shift.
We haven't focused and talked a lot about the concept of how revolutionary in the first transformation this process is. Okay. Because we've been talking solar, I've been focused on solar, and often when you start, it's a complicated story to explain. So if I start, divulging all the key excitement behind that 4N for other reason than solar, then I'm always going to have like the guy in the back says, "Oh, you're saying that because you can't do it." So I'm not bothering explaining it, but it's part of that process. But Peter Pascali of Pyro went out and explained it a bit yesterday in his press release.
Yeah, and that's an unbelievable partner to have in all this. So from a layman's perspective, you're talking about a paradigm shifting technology process on the way to producing solar grade silicon metal. All right, so that's I want to get the idea of the scale of this. Are we making the incremental gains, just making a little better mousetrap, or we're making almost a complete different mousetrap? So they're in the press release, in the headline, you say you talk about in the press release, talk about key takeaways. So let's talk about a couple of those. The 4N. Okay, you just kind of touched on it from the layman's term. Let's get a little more technical. It's bold. It's very big to say that, but haven't we been here before? Because in November of 2016, you had talked about achieving 4N. So here we are in February of 2019. Are you just repeating yourself, or what's different about this time around?
It's massively different. Okay. First of all, when we started this process, we were using to calculate our purity. We were doing what's simply known. It's the way the process works. What's known as surface reading of the material. All right. So you take a laser beam, you pinpoint it, and you found on the pinpoint you had 4N, which told you the process worked. Here we are now, we are actually using what's known as a proof of concept of commercial scalability equipment. Okay. And we're focused on the equipment that will generate the commercial scale material. So lab test results, Gen 1 results, they had a certain limitation what we could do. And they were sort of like easier to manage because when we're using laser pinpoint information, it's a question where you point the material, you get the purity out of it. As we evolve in the process, we went from those type of material to, okay, now we have to go what's known as complete leaching of the material. So then you can't control, it's not as much as a control 4N, it's really everything else you're producing into it. And there's some advantages and some disadvantages to it. Well, the biggest advantage, everything that's in there. Disadvantages is because of the structure and everything we're using, there's a lot of outside contamination that is incorporated in that material. So that's why at industrial scale, they use the laser system. So we were using the system at the end of the process to verify your control, but when we got Apollo into the picture and everything else, we realized that, oh no, we have to go to the complete dilution. And the reason for that is very simple is if by fluke you hit with the laser only the great spot, you get great reading. And if you hit only the bad spot, then you get bad reading. So at one point you got to go and, mesh it all together, figure out what it is in there.
devil's advocate, any chance that we're going to be sitting here 6 months from now or a year from now and saying, okay, well, back in February of 2019, that also wasn't.
No. I mean, no.
This is it.
No, because what we're doing now is we're doing complete digestion of the material. Okay. The only thing that we're going to say in 2, 3, whenever we're up to that stage is, oh, how come we got better results than now? And the reason is very simple. It's the setup of the equipment, because it's a lab scale equipment. By default, magnifies the impurities coming out of the electrodes, the crucible, the mechanism to pick it up. Okay. What we know, what we've been told by everybody else, is the moment we will have an operation system that can do pour of our material, we will have incredibly fresh sample, basically untouched by anything else, because you'll get liquid pour. So the fact that with these errors that we know exist, that influence our results, we're still able to say, according to our model, at commercial scale, okay, we will have 4N. It is based on all these factors. So in theory, we should be higher, but what we know is this is what we're going to be doing.
If I'm listening to people right now on various forums as they're watching this, the logical question that comes from this is, okay, do you then make a move to go to 5N and 6N, or is that not as important now as it was a couple of years ago? Because a couple of years ago, when you're talking about this, we're talking about 5N and 6N.
I think the best sentence comes out of Peter's press releases yesterday.
Peter Pascali of Pyrogenesis?
Pascali of Pyrogenesis.
Okay.
Questions. 4N is still far away from solar grain. And he goes on to say, for Pyrogenesis, their target is still 6N. Okay.
Okay.
However, in the interim, HPQ has identified a faster route to market by the addition of Apollon. And that's the point I've been making. Okay. We could be an R&D project for the next freaking 5 years before we get the 6N fine-tuned. But what we've learned and discovered is if we make 4N coming out of the reactor, the direct pour, we beat the crap out of everybody else. That's literally what it is in the feedstock. This being said, no, I was having discussion with the guys at Pyrogenesis about, how we can get an extra 1N of impurity between the liquid pour. In the traditional process, the liquid silicon metal is poured into a crucible where they add oxygen into it to amalgamate some of the impurities to make it purer. Okay, it's not a process that we need, but they need to do that just to get 1N. When R is liquid, when it's going to be liquid coming out of it, okay, it should be at least 4N, if not more.
But you don't need it to be more, because you're saying at 4N, you've got a business at 4N that quote-unquote beats the crap out of the competition.
What I'm saying is that at 4N, okay, our pathways to purify it to solar-grade silicon metal have become easy to control, easy to manage, cheaper, to already be very competitive. So I can already start, as we get the financial numbers and start modeling to the industry, says, listen, okay, our CapEx is going to be 60% cheaper than the newest plant being built in China, in Inner Mongolia, China, where they're still using chemical process.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I'm beating. Okay.
Yeah, that's beating the crap out of your competition.
That's 60%. Beating the crap out of the competition.
That's the CapEx. How about the OpEx?
OpEx versus those plants were at 30%. But basically, if you beat the crap of the CapEx, there's a concept called cash costs and all-in costs. That's sort of like
Of course, yeah.
Brags about cash costs. Yeah, okay. But according to very very reliable research I've been allowed to read, to see, even those newest plant in China have an all-in cost of $14 a kilogram. That means that as long as the material sells below that price, there's no return on investment. I can say that we are aiming, targeting an all-in costs in the 50% range of what that is.
So around 7.
Around 7, plus or minus.
So that's the all-in. For people who are new, actually for people like me and even long-time people who follow the story, that's 60% of CapEx. Mm-hmm. What does that translate into roughly on average in dollar terms? Because, and by the for everyone at home, CapEx is capital expenditures. So we're talking about $1 million, you're saving 6%, and therefore you're saving $700,000. What?
Let's put it
just so people at home know the magnitude of what that 6% means.
$45 a kilogram of annual capacity versus below 15. That's what it means. That's the difference. That's what we're talking about.
But if I'm building a solar grade, a silicon solar grade, a solar grade silicon manufacturing facility for the first time, if I'm not using your process, I'm using it. What does that cost me?
$45 a kilogram of annual capacity. Multiply that by the kilogram. So if it's as if you're talking roughly about $300 million versus $50 million.
That's what the number. That's the number I'm looking for. So you're talking about a monster difference.
See, those are the type of numbers. Like I have to be more cautious about as I talk about those numbers. But
yeah, we're just talking general. We're not
kilogram. It's like between you and me, we can discuss this. But if there's more than you and me to watch this, maybe there is. I have to stay in the $45. I have to talk in the kilogram per annual capacity.
All right, but we do got an idea that the savings are massive from a dollar point of view, not just percentage point of view. So let's talk about achieving 4N on a commercial scale. PyroGenesis, quote unquote, concluded that the process should allow HPQ to reach the 4N SI 99.99% plus. When do you hit that commercial scale?
Gen 3. Gen 3 has been designed to reach what we call commercial scale. That's fundamental.
That is this summer.
This summer it starts. Is it? It's like we could be darn ass lucky and the first test is going to work. But it's called research and internally we call it as a joke research and destroy, R&D.
Yeah.
But it's really research and development. We know the known knowns of what could have not worked have been resolved with the Gen 2. Now we'll enter into the unknown. Okay. We don't think there's that many of them, but if you're asking me to swear in the Bible or any other, thing that there won't be, I can't. Because it's an R&D process. But everything tells us it looks darn good.
Yeah, and that's why PyroGenesis should allow you to reach that. But between you, PyroGenesis, and Apollo Solar, everyone's pretty confident. And everyone's pretty confident. And why are they very confident that you're going to achieve 4N in commercial scale?
Well, it's basically simple physics and math and everything else. It's like we've demonstrated that production yield, and that's what the press release says, demonstrated production yield, in our case, increases the impurity removal factor. All right? Well, fundamentally, what the PureVap does is it removes impurity during the processes. So if we increase the impurity removal, we'll get a pure product. It's not rocket science. Yep. It's not, and we've proven this. We've proven this in the Gen 1 because we've played a little bit with what the Gen 1 allowed us. We proved this massively in the Gen 2. Now, the big risk was Gen 1 to Gen 2, okay?
Right.
Was, can that system be operated in a continuous mode for commercial scale? That was the most technical challenge that we had, was that one, okay? Because that's never been done in the world. Point blank, that's never been done.
So now that you've gotten over that hurdle, now it's just a case
exactly. This is what's funny. That's the biggest hurdle. That's the biggest technical. And it sort of goes like, oh, it's no big deal. Well, sorry, nobody does it. The reason why vacuum system for purified education is always used at the end of the process, not at the beginning, because nobody's figured out but the guys at Pyro figure out how you can do it on a semi-continuous process to have a commercial scale process to work. So that's the key point. But all our theory behind how we're going to get to the 4N was based on this. That works. That's been proven.
Yeah, so now you just got to prove it, but you're not too worried. But still, you have to actually prove it before you can put a rubber stamp on and say we've done it.
Yeah, basically, what the model tells us, we're going to do it. Now, there's going to be some people that says, going to be doubting Thomas and wait until we see it. Who cares? We know we're going to be doing it. We're in the right way. We're doing the incremental steps required to get us there. Sorry, I cannot go faster than the system goes, and c'est la vie. But I'll take another takeaway from Pyro's yesterday's news release, okay? He's blunt, Peter, when he says that. He doesn't have time or money to waste to have his guys working the system didn't work. Well, newsflash, if we hadn't reached those targets, okay, there's a good probability that Peter and Pyro would have walked away because it's not working. They're not walking away. They even repeated. They're big shareholders, and they really believe it's going to be a big there. So
yeah, that says a lot.
It's
that says a lot.
Like I have, thanks to my partnership with Pyro, I have access to some of the top brainiacs expert in plasma-based technology and high-temperature processes, okay? These guys, Peter's completely right. They're not cheap. And if there is no commercial potential to this concept, okay, I won't have access to them.
And you know what? From a layman's term, everyone should understand at home who's watching this maybe for the first time. If you're not watching for the first time, you understand it already. But Pyrogenesis is a company that's successful on multiple applications of their technology, the plasma torch technologies, with the U.S. military, with the biggest 3D printing companies in Europe, with large steel mills for other applications. So they've got better things to do with their time already. If this wasn't working, this is not a case of, and this is what people at home should really understand. This is not a case of, well, HPQ's got nothing better to do, and Pyrogenesis got nothing better to do. So even if it's not working, let's just keep trying to hit a Hail Mary because, well, we better do something, or we're going to go home.
No,
Pyrogenesis has a lot more things to do with their time. So if they're moving forward, it's because they've got a high degree of confidence that this is going to be commercially scalable. That's got to be. Tell me if I'm wrong, but that's got to be the implication. That's got to be.
Well, that's been it since the beginning. Since the beginning, they thought that they could make this a commercial viable system, and Peter says it on multiple occasions, and he says it in my face in front of investors. He says if it wasn't working, we wouldn't be there, and you know what? It's true. So,
and that's what I love about third-party validation. By the way, Bernard, I'll tell you this because look, you're a client, we're friends. Way above being clients. We've been together for so long. But the fact of the matter is, everybody who leads a company says they have the prettiest baby in the world. They have the best widget in the world. That's what you expect, right? And I've always said that's the downfall of many emerging companies. They believe their own hype a little bit too much. But in this case, you've got Pyrogenesis, a world-class technology company. And we got Apollon Solar, a world-class renewable energy company, that are right there in the project, putting either their money and or their technology and their quotes right in these press releases, backing what you're saying. So to me, that gives me a great deal of comfort from the business side that, what you're saying is in fact happening. Not that you're not trustworthy, but third-party validation is always really important. And that's what I really love about, this press release. So let me ask you a final question. Commercial operations, Gen 3 begin mid-2019. So that could be June, July, August-ish. So we're not trying to pin it down to a date.
Ish. Everything.
Ish. What do the rest of us do in the meantime then? Is there nothing, do we just, are we waiting now for football season to begin, the HPQ Silicon season to begin? In the meantime, we just kind of go away and then come back, or what are you doing in the meantime?
Well, George, I've been in this business long enough that I understand that there's a phase which is very boring. I consider that the phase where you look at paint drying. Okay. But in our case, we've been doing a heck of a lot of work behind the scene, which is all incremental toward the target that we're reaching. And we're now coming to the last phase of it. So I've sort of been very mellow on the promotion side lately, in the sense going out and telling the story, meeting investors. There is a massive market out there that doesn't know we exist. And as I said,
that's been by design too, because you don't want to put the cart before the horse and talk about how great you are, and then find out that Gen 2 failed or didn't live up to its expectations, and you got to backtrack.
Yeah.
But now you're ready.
It's not even that. If there's going to be some investors that are going to, we're coming close to that zone, like that zone where, pre-investors are going to get excited and they want to get in before the success is there. Okay, we're getting into that zone, and you got to figure out where that zone is, and that zone starts now until the pilot plant's operational, and then things move on. In parallel, what we've done also is look at multiple additional markets, multiple other things, but I've chosen not to speak about it, not to speak about what we're doing for two things. If I confuse the storyline, there's always going to be some noise says, oh, they're doing this because it doesn't work. So, and the debate, it works. That doesn't mean not lots of things that I can look at, additional potential. The battery one's a massive one. Okay, battery one it's going to be massive. The demand for silicon metal in batteries is going to be humongous. It's going to go through the roof. The additional fun part of it is what we're starting to understand is that you need a certain small size of silicon metal that could work well in plasma atomization. Oh, well, lo and behold, our partner does that. So that's an interesting market.
Our guest is famous for that.
But so those are all side market. And we started to talk about it because the truth of the matter is our 50-ton plant, once it's finished, demonstrated it works, we either going to go mothball it or modify it and use it for other product and everything else. And so,
so in the meantime, that's what you're working on.
Our business opportunities are very, very wide, but I want to spread myself too wide. So I'll stay there. I want to have a simple, focused story moving forward on solar. And that market is massive for me to go talk to people.
And look, I thought you were smart. You guys are smart because you've already done that. You've already demonstrated that by spinning out both Goldfields. You didn't want to spread the story out. You spin out, so I admire that. So, but to kind of decode what you're saying, you are working on other things in the meantime. You're working on them kind of stealth. They're additive to the technology and the process you've already created and proven. But you're not ready to start talking about those things. But it's not as if the company's going to be quiet until you, me, and Peter aren't going vacationing, golfing till June, is what you're saying. There's plenty going on.
I'm going to be even blunt. I haven't really gone out marketing since 2017. Now, there's an event in 2017 that did trigger my slowdown in marketing, and then there was follow-up events that led me to understand that. See, I don't want to get a new group of investors that are coming in to bring us to the next level, okay? If I come in a little bit too early into the image and the process, okay, they're going to get excited about the story, but they're going to say there's something I'm missing. Then they're going to completely forget why they excited. The only thing they're going to remember is, oh, I wasn't interested then. So there is something like sort of like a special dance. When do you go, when you don't go? Talk too much, don't talk too much. And my feeling is that now is the right time to go out and start talking about it. Why? Well, basically because pretty soon I can bring investors to the pilot plant, make them see, and seeing it as an incredible impact on investors. And we're moving forward. Like I'll just give you just a little bit of an inkling of what we're working on. We said we're going to be working on producing our first solar cells after that. Well, that requires us to start negotiating with laboratories and universities and in areas with Apollon, how we're going to do and what's going to be the timeline. So we're working on those things in parallel what we're doing right now. It's not something that's immediately newsworthy, but it's coming out.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, you got to be working on things in parallel. You can't do it sequentially, otherwise you won't be commercial for 5 years.
Yeah, what we've done, and what I find to be really amazing is our strategy is sort of like R&D as we develop, as opposed to let's finish all the R&D, make sure everything works on the first stage, we move to the other one. We've very often moved the ball and the target and everything else as we kept going. It's like it's R&D as we develop the company, as opposed to stationary R&D, finish everything else, move to the next step. And what that brings us is much more opportunity and much more flexibility than everybody has.
Okay, that's perfect. Buddy, thanks for joining us today. Bernard, I mean, great news on the press release. That's a fantastic achievement. And I love the fact that you used some pretty bold layman explanation description in this interview to really explain what this all means, right? Because it's easy to get lost in the technological haze, technical haze of all this. And I think you did a fast at, hey, beat the crap out of competition is probably going to be the headline that comes out of this interview. And I appreciate you being here, my friend.
Thank you.
You've been watching Bernard Tourillon, Chairman and CEO of HPQ Silicon Resources. Company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol HPQ. For more information about the company, get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name or stock symbol. Take a look at all the previous press releases that are there. Watch the previous videos that we've done with Bernard, especially for new people who are just hearing about the story. And what's very unique and very telling about Bernard's confidence is that it is a CEO verified forum, which means you can ask questions and you'll get your answers directly from Bernard, and that's a verified profile on Agoracom, so you know you're getting the answers directly from the CEO. So take advantage of that, do your due diligence, and then by all means, please go ask the CEO any questions you want. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Do your due diligence. We'll see you next time.